decisions. In 2019, deciding, okay, well, what is your passion?
Right.
Okay, jewelry. I can do jewelry. I can go sell jewelry. I love shopping at pop-up markets and things like that. And so these pop-up markets around DFW is kind of what encouraged me to just go for it, right?
Yeah.
So we got the powwow mindset of, okay, I was supposed to that. I know how it generally works. And I've always been somebody to figure things out. So I want to say January 2019 was when I started working for substitute teaching with Arlington ISD. By the summer, I think I had already started planning, how is this going to look like?
Yeah.
And so, of course, you got to come up with a name.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
You gotta come up with a name.
that's the beginning.
And I kind of went, like, took too long trying to figure that out because I couldn't figure it out. I'm so indecisive. I don't know what it is, but I knew I wanted to have something that's going to stick, but also, like, work on different levels for myself. And Charms Twins came to mind because I was working with earrings and jewelry and charms, right? But I'm also a twin. I have a twin sister.
Oh wow, that's the first time I've heard this. That's crazy. I
have a twin sister.
I never knew that, man.
I have a twin sister, and she's actually a teacher in Austin. So
that's dope.
I thought one of these days I would hope that if any of my siblings wanted to jump onto my business and wanted to help out, get paid for it, or have, some kind of role, they could just jump on. Because starting a business is hard and you have to figure out the resources and all that. Yeah. So I landed on, right, Charm Twins. It felt good to me. My sister was like, I don't really care for it, but whatever, right? But then that was me also learning now, okay, I have the name, I know what I'm going to do, I can figure out the supplies, but how do you really become a business in Fort Worth, DFW, and stuff like that? I'm still figuring out a lot more of the detailed things, but basically I looked online, I did some research, and I knew, okay, you can get your LLC, you can get your corporation stuff, you can get a DBA. A DBA is what I landed on because that's the easiest thing you can do, especially if you're starting out and you need to get your foot in the door of entrepreneurship, right? I went to I guess this is the comptroller's office on my birthday.
I saw that.
And told myself, I'm going to buy my DBA and just get it done. Just taking myself over there was the biggest step because I think a lot of times people's dreams die out because they haven't just done the simple action step to get going.
That's good. I like that.
With finding out along the journey that I'm a little bit ADHD, and I'm realizing, a lot of times you have to just do it, just start, and then but keep going. You don't just start and then that's it. You have to keep figuring out, okay, what else can I do? Who else can I talk to? What questions can I ask? To figure out where I need to go next. And so I got that DBA and it was simple, but I did not have anybody teaching me. What do you do next? How do you do taxes? How do you do this? So I'm looking online, I'm looking on TikTok, I'm looking up different people's experiences and then pulling it to
of course, to make it your own,
Yeah, so that is how Charm Twins got started. I'm sorry, like I told you, we had to strap in and go from the beginning. There's a lot more factors.
My seatbelt was buckled.
There's a lot more. So
that's funny.
That is Charm Twins. That's how we got started, and I can go into more detail. But let you ask the question.
Yeah, this is what I'm learning for her, y'all. Us working with Jim Austin. Yeah, she can go. I'll let her go. Man, I didn't want to cut you off. But going back to the reading point, what books were you reading to make sure that you were mentally, emotionally sharp? I know you mentioned the reading and listening to music. What were you reading to help you grow? Yeah,
so I have to start by saying I was an avid reader in high school. Middle school through high school for sure. College, of course, I got into the college lifestyle. I was not reading books, y'all. Like, I didn't have the time to sit there and get lost like I used to, right? But also, let me go back and say in middle school and high school, I read so much because being in foster care, can't do anything, can't go anywhere.
Why?
There are foster parents that make sure their kids can, but then there are some that are just doing the bare minimum, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes when you're already overwhelmed with so many children with different backgrounds and different emotional and mental capabilities and stuff, you probably don't have time or energy to go take the kids out. And especially with all the rules and regulations that, the state of Texas has on foster children, there's all that going into play too. So I didn't go out a lot. I would check out books from our school library, and I started off with a couple, but I realized I liked fantasy, I liked, to get away. And so Harry Potter and I want to say Twilight were the two biggest books that I read, or series, through that time. And I remember, I would read those big books like within 3 to 4 days because I would be on it. Anytime I wasn't doing something I had to do, I was reading. I was escaping. And so that was a big part of me being able to be, I guess, being able to comprehend stuff in reading a lot better than hearing things. And even language, I can't speak Spanish as fluently currently because I'm not, practicing, but reading and writing is a lot easier for me because seeing what sounds make what made it so much easier for me to hear. I always tell my husband, like, I'm such a visual learner that
me too.
If I see like a language written out first, as I'm trying to remember the words, my brain is bringing up that word in my head, seeing it. And so, I mean, I'm not like one of those geniuses that can have like a, screenshot of thought in a, an image in a book and remember that, diagram piece by piece. I can't do that, but it definitely helps my comprehensive skills. So going into this, like what books did I read to get to where I am? I started reading a couple, right? There's I think it's like 7 Skills for Highly Effective People.
I heard of that book.
My dad is always trying to get me to read that. He's always trying to get me to get on the Dave Ramsey stuff, right? Which is, that's on my to-do list coming forward, right? Because I finally need to get locked into these books to get a lot more knowledge that I'm able to get right now, right? Yeah. But I started that one. I started, what is the word? Eat That Frog. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that book.
And I still haven't read it all the way, but I read enough to get the points I needed to know, okay, this is a good book to have along your process. And Eat That Frog, it was basically like to help stop procrastination, right? A lot of it shows like the background of like why it's hard for people to just do the biggest task. It's daunting. And you put it off and you put it off, and especially with people like me that have some ADHD, some ADD, the procrastination becomes a really big, I want to say just like, I don't know the right word, discourage, or like something that if you procrastinate too much, you're never getting that excitement in completing something, especially a big something, right? A big task. And so just even thinking of that and referring it to going to get my DBA was a big Eat That Frog moment. Because I just had to go do it.
Just do it.
Do it. And now I have one less thing on my to-do list that's nagging me like, you got to do this. So anyways, Eat That Frog.
Have you heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I haven't.
Robert Kiyosaki?
See, I need to actually join. Maybe there's an entrepreneurial book club. I need, more connections like that. But I know reading is so important. Yeah. So along this entrepreneurial journey, I may not have been able to sit down and read these books front to cover, but what I was doing was searching online. Yeah. And a lot of internet interface, you're reading a lot, and so I'm having to scan and read, and like I said, I'm taking, and I can't source anything right now, cite anything, because it was just a bunch of Google searching, right? And a lot of times you'll get the first couple of things, and like, okay, that sounds about right, I get that point. If I needed to do a little bit more digging, I'd look at the next couple of links and read, on their article or whatever it was, and just picking up things along the way and adding it to, my storage in my brain. But I really wish I could say I had certain ones that I finished start to beginning, but I'm seeing how important it is as an entrepreneur mom who can't get out there all the time. Reading these books is getting me that exposure that I need, that I can't get right now as I wait for my son to grow up and get into school and stuff. I tried to take him along with me on certain things, and I realized I can't do that. He can't sit down long enough for me to focus, so my brain is always pulled in different directions. So I don't have time to read like I used to. But it is key to learning new things, and so.
No, that's true. I'll definitely do better in my reading too, considering I work at a library.
And we're working on a reading challenge right now with our personal
Jim.
Mr. Austin, with the National Multicultural Western Heritage.
I always mess that up.
They're doing a reading challenge with Fort Worth ISD and Fort Worth Spark and NBC5. They're doing their Reading With You challenge, and so just being a part of the group putting this on, being the one to help connect everybody to get their points across and make sure this program is going to be successful. It's a pilot program right now. Okay. And hopefully, we'll be able to reach other people, not just Fort Worth ISD, but we needed to start, right? And so we were able to get 7 Fort Worth ISD schools to challenge their 3rd graders. They have to self-select into it because the school right now can't afford to send every student home with a computer, laptop, iPad. It's just right now with how tight of a time frame we have with it, we're just doing the third graders, we know that's important, learning to read in third grade. They're learning to read inside their heads. But also, third grade, I was in third grade when I was dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Just even beginning to go into foster
care,
and
yeah.
that reading helped me escape. It helped me connect with other people, go to the library, talk to a librarian, and I wanted, what was I going with that? The reading challenge. Oh,
yeah,
they
reading
said
challenge, yeah.
15 minutes a day is all a kid really needs to just make sure that they don't slide and regress in their learning and their reading comprehension, right? And so I didn't know that until I had got exposed to this challenge and began working with it. And that inspired me, like, okay, we need to be inspiring these kids, but also adults to get back into reading, get back into connecting with something that works for them, right?
Yeah.
We're all kind of alone and lost right now, especially I feel like since COVID. And we can't probably connect with people the way we probably need to, but reading allows you to connect in a way that's non-judgmental. You're not worrying about being, for lack of better words, dumb when you're speaking to somebody because it's just you and your brain, right?
Yeah.
You and the words. And so you're going to connect on a different level than you would connecting with other people. But it's important. I realized that 15 minutes a day, I can do that. I can, while I'm waiting for my food to bake or whatever, I can sit there and say, hey, I'm going to read 15 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
Without the pressure of having to read a chapter or set a number of pages. And I see myself in the next year doing that for 2025. Like I said, I have a lot of entrepreneurial books that I want to read. That Rich Dad Poor Dad one you said.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's dope. Going back to you mentioned having family members, being having businesses early on. Did you find a way to connect with them as you got older to help your entrepreneur endeavors?
So this year, I definitely have been asking a lot more questions for my relatives because I realized, okay, like, you don't need to do this alone.
Of course.
But at the same time, I'm also realizing, though they figured out things on their own, because both my uncle and my adopted dad started from the ground up. They're the ones that started at a young age. I think my uncle was 14 when we moved here. He moved here to the States and worked for another company as a roofer.
Wow.
And then, did a couple jobs, learned people in that area, and just began to work on his community. Of course, for any business, you have to have customers, people to network with and stuff like that. And that wasn't something I knew to do, right? But I just kind of watched them from the background. But now I'm learning, okay, I need to ask the right questions. So I have interview questions lined up for my dad alone for Christmas. But then also I had to realize sometimes you can't get all your advice from family members because their expectations and their answers may not live up to what you are probably needing, right? I definitely, have to cherry pick a little with what advice maybe my dad will give me, advice my uncle will give me, but also at the same time too, they had to hire people with the skills that they didn't have. And I'm realizing that as an entrepreneur, as I want to grow in that mobile market coordinating, I need to learn, how do I hire employees? Or how do I work with contract workers that are already doing their own business that need the work, I'm learning that now. Preparing for 2025, especially my goal is by 2025, or the fall of 2025, is to find a couple of people that are working with me. Not for me right now, because I really don't think I can navigate hiring people right now. It would be lovely to eventually, but I know working with people that already have their own business, their own dreams, and their own goals, and align them with what works for me too. Obviously, with what works for them, but we're on the same path, we have the same goals, but now I can get this person and outsource them and use their skill sets, right? And I learned that some of the questions my family couldn't answer, it's because they don't know. Somebody else doing it for them.
No, that's true. You don't know what you don't know.
That's one that you don't know what you don't know. I've learned that the most this year, and hearing people say that, what a revelation that is. I feel so overwhelmed by not knowing enough, and then giving myself grace by hearing you don't know what you don't know. So being able to set aside a time to brainstorm and collaborate with my own brain, what are things that we want to work on this year or this month, or what can we do to grow? And so I had to pivot. So you're asking what questions did I get from these people in my family. I was afraid to ask certain questions because I was like, is that too personal? Do I ask about finances? Do I ask about how do you do your taxes? Who does your taxes?
Right.
What it gets a little personal, especially with people that already have bigger businesses, right? And finances can be a hard question to ask people.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough topic.
So I had to learn that on my own. But I've networked with people this year that have their own bookkeeping stuff, and I can go ask questions or go get them to do at least one thing for me and learn from them along the way, right?
Yeah.
But the questions I had basically lined up for my family members that I feel like was so big to me was, what pushed you to start, right? And that helped me feel a little bit better about what pushed me to start. Because it seems like, okay, whatever, you just did this and that. But it isn't until you hear those stories and the passion and the growth and learning behind it that it becomes to relate and connect a little bit more. And like, I don't know, I feel like it lands a lot solider.
Yeah.
That's weird.
We're going to use it today. It's solider. 2025.
Hey, y'all, on this podcast, you're hearing me say all kinds of things.
That's hilarious.
So, anyways, like for things to land a lot stronger for me, it has to, be personal. I go personal in everything I do, and so I think that was why I was having a hard time asking questions, because they were personal questions in a business aspect. So.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, we on the road. Make sure y'all keep y'all seatbelts buckled. You also mentioned in your bio developing the skill set of jury making from a family member. Were there any other inspirations in wanting to perfect your craft outside of family member?
Yeah, so like the powwows, jewelry was more of like beaded stuff, and then of course growing up, I love jewelry. I couldn't go out of the house without earrings, and most of the time they were hoops. I was a little bit chola growing up, and so I was always wearing hoop earrings and my hair long and straight. But I did change it up occasionally, and so my adopted mom, and I was in high school, she brought me a pair of earrings that were guitar picks, and I thought they were so pretty. So, I forgot about them, and then in 2019, when I was trying to decide, what am I gonna make? I can make very cute stuff, but I get stuck on the process, right? And sometimes I need fresh ideas, but then what's gonna sell? What's gonna pull at somebody's heartstrings? So one of the things I saw was some people would say, well, the beads are too heavy for me, or the metal is too, I need to make sure it's this or that. So I tried to make sure my jewelry metal was like stainless steel or sterling silver.
Okay.
But those are ones that they're cheap to get, but they're also not gonna wear on you. They're hypoallergenic. And so a lot of people are a little bit more lenient. I'm like, okay, I can afford to get that, and it's not gonna hurt my skin too much. But to solve the problem of something heavy, I was going back to my jewelry box and I saw the guitar pick earrings. And I think they had used wire or something like that. And I'm like, I know what I can do to make this an earring. And so when I wore them, I thought this was so cool. Like, I can wear them, I don't really feel them, but then it became a sensory thing because the charm at the end kind of gave it a weight, and so they would kind of dingle a little bit, right? So I started incorporating guitar picks into my jewelry because of that experience, right? Dope. And then I realized, I can get a bunch of different types of guitar picks that have different colors and images on them, and those became my bestsellers because I can find something in anime, I can find something with animals, I can find something, with the Hispanic, different flags and stuff like that people like. And so like today, I wear them because I was like, let me wear something I actually made. And I still get inspired by different colors and movies and things like that. But family members, I think I'm the only one that really makes jewelry. But a lot of the women in my family sew, they knit or crochet. So I learned to pick up some of those things along the way. And I've done jewelry out of ribbons for little girls because they're not going to be a metal that's going to affect their skin, but also they're lightweight. And so those were also my best sellers during the summer.
That's dope. That's dope. For you, what has been the most challenging part starting out in the jewelry making world? What's been most challenging for you?
So, like I said, having to figure out what are people going to buy, what are customers saying, that their concerns are with jewelry. I had to figure that out. But also, when I started out making jewelry, I realized, and this is actually what led me into doing pop-up markets, I don't have a connection with people local. I have family and friends, but that's very small compared to where I was living in college and where I was in Austin, because DFW is a new environment for me. I moved up here with my husband because his family is from here. But I realized I didn't have the online presence to be able to sell on Facebook Marketplace, to sell on Etsy, and a lot of small businesses that do jewelry or clothing or something like that. It's one, it's very oversaturated on Etsy and some of the online things, and then they're always talking about you need to have a niche and you need to only do this and that. And for me, because I have so many different ideas, I can't just do the same thing over and over again. That was hard for me, right? And so I was also missing the connections with customers, right? Because how can I get new customers when they don't know me? And then online, we're experiencing a lot of spammy stuff happening right now, scammy stuff. And so some people, it's hard for them to buy from Marketplace. And then, like I said, Etsy's already oversaturated, so it's hard to even get somebody to find my page. Not that you can't do it. There's people that already know, the lingo and the ways to word things to get their stuff to pop up over somebody who doesn't really know, right?
Right.
And so I was like, I don't know how to navigate this right now. I don't have the right people to ask questions. I can look on YouTube, I can look on TikTok, but how do I get that connection with people to help inspire me to keep going?
Yeah.
And that's when I found these local pop-up markets. And when I did that, I was like, I didn't make a lot of sales. There were very slow days. There were a couple good days. But despite that, that still encouraged me to keep on going, because at least that Saturday that I spent 6 hours out there at the pop-up market, I connected with the entrepreneurs next to me and got to learn a little bit more with them. Yes, I got to talk to customers face to face and get their opinions firsthand, get their concerns firsthand.
Yeah.
And then also, get the experience and I guess advice from people in the area. So I'm not only getting advice and pointers from my local vendors next to me, customers, but then also people who aren't customers just stopping by, talking about the area. Like I said, I didn't know anything about where I was at until they started talking about, oh, this is here and this is there and these people like this stuff. And then you start exploring what is my customer base?
Yeah.
What kind of age group am I, selling to? And it can vary, but if you don't know some of those statistics in the environment that you're in, sometimes you can go in kind of feeling hopeless, like, oh, maybe I should be here. And that was the other thing too, finding markets that fit your vibe or fit your tribe, basically. I went to a lot of holistic fairs and did jewelry there because I was working with jewelry that had, lava stones that you can do essential oils on. And then I had stuff that was, more of the metaphysical vibe with stones, like crystal stones. And but then I was going to other markets where it was more like for children. So like my unicorn earrings would sell a lot more. So it was always different, right? But I was learning different things in that market. Being a pop-up market vendor allowed me to grow a lot more than I would have been doing it online, especially starting out and not knowing anything.
Gotcha. You have a dope story. I didn't learn a lot of that.
When you were still not over, I thought you touched on 2020.
We definitely gonna get to that. I guess from being in foster care after the 3rd grade up until now, for you, what would be your definition of success in your own words? I believe we all have our own definition of what success looks like to us.
Well, success, I mean, it's been a hard word for me because I feel like just life hasn't been laid out for me to set me up for success, if that makes sense. So having to discover what is the basic meaning of success to people. Because I feel like our society right now, it's like you're not successful until you're making a certain amount of money, until you have these connections, so you're living this kind of life with this car and this house, things like that. That's what's successful. To me, success was always making connection, a human connection, emotional connection. Like I say, just because I met you once doesn't mean I won't say hi to you again, but we're not going to just say hi. We'll probably end up talking about your grandma and your aunt and all kinds of things because of that connection. But like for me, success is like having those connections come a little bit more easier because I made the time and dedication. And I mean, I'm still struggling with success because I don't feel successful in, I guess, the terms of finances and our, what is the word? The commerce world. If I can't think of the right word right now, but it's so fast paced, the consuming things, and it has turned me off from feeling successful in that sense. And so, you know, and also not being able to juggle things as gracefully, sometimes I feel like I'm not being successful. And so, like I said, it's hard to define that for myself, but I think what helps me see it is you, Mr. Austin, like people that are in my life and seeing me just work and do what I need to do. That mirror that y'all give me when y'all talk about me, how you describe me to other people, it blows my mind because I'm like, what? I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I feel like this sometimes. I get it from, you know, Mike and Rita. Like, I don't even see it, but they see it. So.
Yeah, and I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome, right? Like, what gives you the right to do what you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I struggle with that so much, especially because I don't have that upbringing that led me to that successful path, right? And so, I mean, right now I can say success feels like succeeding in like doing what I want to do, right? And making sure that if I need a couple of days to be moody and walk off the world, that I show up for myself, you know, the next week.
Yeah.
And so it's ever changing. It's not very, you know, I can't give you a straight definition.
No, that's fine, fam. That's fine.
It is a roller coaster success, for sure.
I got you. You mentioned the impact of COVID-19, and we know 2020 was rough for all of us. Share with us the adjustments you had to make managing your business and family, because I'm pretty sure that was heavy.
So, and I think I said 2019 was maybe when I did that substitute teaching. I think it was 2018 when I started, because I remember I was already getting the hang of it. I heard of the assignments, and then 2019, you know, March was when I think school shut down for the first time, right? March 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe my timeline is right. So 2019, I was substitute teaching, and then the beginning of 2020 was when they said that we weren't going to have any school going forward, right? While substitute teaching, I was doing the markets on the side on the weekends, and so I think I had already started to get as many markets as I could booked up, and doing substitute teaching. When the world shut down, I was like, okay, great, we get to have a break with no pressure, right, of having to do anything for the world, right? Because everybody is in the same situation with COVID. And then because of my husband's health with the heart surgery, right, in 2015, we're 2019, 4 years post surgery. He's doing well. He's on blood thinners, though. And for me, when I heard how serious COVID was affecting people, I feel like my PTSD like reared up, and I was one of the people that wore masks everywhere. I was hand sanitizing everywhere, and I couldn't be there with my husband during that time. Like, oh, he's at work, right? I can't make him wear his mask and do all these things, even though I would have done it if I was there. But that made me realize I'm so scared of losing him with everything, right? Everybody's going through this. But as far as work goes, I was like, great, there's no expectations of anybody getting anything this year. I rested for sure.
Right.
But and especially with my business, I was only doing a couple of sales here and there by people, but because we weren't meeting face to face, doing pop-up markets, that kind of took the back burner, right? I wasn't really focusing on that right there. But going to August of 2020, we went to a vacation. We went to New Mexico to see my brother and sister-in-law for vacation, and on that vacation, my husband woke up one morning and was kind of falling over. He wasn't talking right. He was slurring his speech. And in college and leading up to his heart surgery and stuff, like, he used to drink a lot. And he could drink all night with his frat brothers and his football team and all that, but then wake up at like 7 a.m. and it was good. You know, he's cooking breakfast. He's, you know, doing things he needs to do the next morning. And so for me that night, I think they were going to have a barbecue the next day, and he was helping his brother debone chicken, and I think they had one beer. So I thought, when I saw these things, I thought, is he drunk? Did he drink more when I went to sleep? And I was like, I don't think so. And even then, this is not, you know, normal for him. But granted, I didn't know the signs that now I know. We had him in the room, kind of like had a heating pad on, had him resting, thinking, okay, he'll sober up and wake up and he'll be fine, right? 3 or 4 hours go by, and he's still not changing, and I don't know what's going on, and I'm feeling anxious. So I tell my sister-in-law, like, hey, what do we do? Like, this isn't normal for him. And so she has, we're in New Mexico, we're in a small city, town. And so she had an EMT friend who came and just kind of checked his vitals and said, yeah, you need to call the ambulance. The ambulance comes, they check his vitals, take him in, and he's a big dude. They had
I met
everybody
him. Yeah, I met him.
help bring him out of the house and into the ambulance. And so we follow them to the hospital. I'm waiting for the news, and they tell me, your husband has a brain bleed.
Wow.
I was like, a brain bleed? What? Like, when I say I was shocked, my brain could not process this information. I was like, this only happens in the movies, right? Like, is this how these serious medical things happen in real life? Like, it's just something that just happened. I don't know how to explain this. You wake up and it's not normal. So, when that happened, and she told me that, she's like, we're in New Mexico, like the closest, a hospital that can take him with his, what's going on and help him is, I think, in, I don't know where it was actually. It was in New Mexico. It was a couple hours away. They were gonna have to care flight him there. But I said, hey, we're not from New Mexico. We live in Texas. We need to get back to Texas and have him in the hospital over there. And so the closest place they can care flight him in Texas was El Paso. And El Paso is hundreds of miles from DFW. Wow. Hundreds. And so when they told me, like, we're going to El Paso, I'm like, okay, great. We're in Texas at least. Insurance can take us, get him into the hospital over there. And the hardest part, though, was we're in COVID. They would not let me in the hospital with him when he got placed in there, because he got placed in via, like, the emergency route and stuff. He went in without me, and so once I wasn't in there, they would not let me in. So I was talking to the hospital over the phone, over, FaceTime and stuff with the little iPads I had, and, life was just very chaotic for me, right? Like, it was crazy. I felt numb, calm, and I felt like that was God, because I was like, how did I get through that without, breaking down,
yeah,
right?
losing
I
yourself.
felt very calm, I was able to ask questions, I was able to get answers, I was able to just kind of be as things are going on, and that was a very lonely time, because I had my brother-in-laws and my sister-in-law with me. They came from Mexico with everything. They stayed here about 2 weeks, and then my parents flew in and was able to be there with me for a little bit too, but then they had to leave. So I think we were in El Paso for about 3 or 4 months. I was in an Airbnb and a hotel off and on, and but I stayed there by myself. And so I feel like, society has us always having to do stuff and, I don't know, like, do things that make you feel important, do things that make you feel like you're doing something. And during that time, especially in those Airbnbs, I was just surviving. I was watching animes, I was eating, and I was in my bed. And just trying to make sure that I called, made sure that they, were giving me updates, and make sure I was able to see him. So a lot of the times they would let us FaceTime. And it was crazy seeing him there and not seeing him interactive, not seeing him smile, not hearing him talk. And so a lot of times while he was on the FaceTime, and he could talk, and I was talking to him and trying to say things to help spark his memory, because I'm like, I don't know really what to expect after a stroke. Is he going to lose his memory? Is he going to be able to walk again? He wasn't able to do a lot of things for a while, but I would show him music. I would put our songs on, and I could hear him responding or see his face move, and I was like, okay, this is working. And then, like, within a few days, he was talking to us, he was responding, interacting with us, and then all of a sudden, he had regressed. He had fevers out of nowhere. They were thinking he was having, like, those silent seizures. Sorry, do I have makeup on already? Silent seizures, and anyway, so it became scary again. And this whole time we were still stuck in El Paso, and I was still stuck outside of the hospital. So all this is happening, I'm trying to keep up. And I think it was October. I was finally, like, calling August, September, October. I was calling every day, and I kept calling their supervisors. Can I get in yet? When can I come see my husband? And finally I got on the phone with somebody, and they said, you haven't seen him yet? They haven't let you in here yet? And I'm like, no, not since August. And so she's like, come today. And so I put my mask on, I got into Uber, and got to the hospital. When I get in there, I was so torn up. I started bawling because he was dirty. He smelled so bad. He went in in August with 2 French braids, freshly braided, and it was matted, it was stinky, nobody washed his hair, nobody washed his nails. You know, I guess he had some bed sores. When he would scratch, there was blood underneath his nails.
Wow.
He would try to pull his tube off in the beginning, and so I guess the blood was still in his hands from then. And I said, why didn't anybody clean him? They said, well, he was aggressive. He couldn't do anything with him. I'm like, but that's when you sedate them. That's when you get somebody to come home. But I'm thinking 3 months in here, and y'all have not been taking care of my man. Like, what the hell? It was very upsetting for me, very traumatizing to think, you know, I'm relying on this hospital to take care of him, and they haven't been doing a good job.
Wow.
And I realized around that time, I guess he was doing a little bit better. No, they were gonna do because they didn't know what these fevers were, the regression that he had, right? He was having fevers and little mini seizures.
Right.
They thought it was, what is it with your spine? They had to do a spinal tap to check his spinal fluid to see if he had meningitis for the fevers. And they didn't find anything. And shortly after he started doing a little bit better, I guess with the medication they were doing. But when I went in there and I was looking at his hair and everything, he had a 4-inch gash in the back of his head.
Wow.
And that's from a bed sore, because they did not check him, they weren't turning him,
Wow.
they weren't cleaning him, and it wasn't until like I think 3 or 4 days, that's after me getting into the hospital and seeing him for the first time. 3 to 4 days later is when he was getting better, regressing, talking to us more. His fevers were still there, but he was, you know, not able to walk as much, but they were getting him to go do laps, and we saw that the stroke affected his left side of his body, I believe. And so he was limp still everywhere, but he was still able to talk. And then they were able to transfer him to outpatient rehab. And he was there for only 3 weeks, and then we moved back to Texas finally. The whole time we couldn't move back to Texas because insurance said El Paso had everything he needed. They couldn't give us that permission and say, like, it's going to be covered. We'd have to pay for him to get from El Paso all the way to DFW in an ambulance because he was unstable, and that would be out of our pocket, which is why we needed to stay there. So when that happened and they let us out, the first thing I did was call the rehab he was going to go to here in DFW. He went to Pate, and they said, we'll have somebody there to look at his head, because that's when I was finally able to get everything unmatted without having to cut his hair. He has long hair.
Yeah.
And get it all washed out. I showed pictures and stuff, and they took him to a wound care specialist, and he had staph infection in that, which was causing him to regress, which could have caused him to have, you know, even more issues. And so for that, trying to trust in the health system and this hospital and during COVID and make sure, I was so upset. I think broken, because it's like, I'm not going to go cause and raise hell, right? Because that's just not who I am. But I mean, I wish I had that spirit, right? Because I was mad that he wasn't being taken care of during this time of uncertainty for everybody, right? But especially in that instance. So when he gets back and we're, you know, getting healed and stuff like that, that's the end of 2020, I believe November. And then we're dealing with death. His uncle passed away while he was doing all this. And his uncle was one of our rocks in our marriage. Like, he has always been there, treated me like family, brought me in. And I'm a little bit of an outsider because they're Tongan and I'm Mexican. But coming in, his uncle never batted an eye, never, you know, made me feel any kind of different. And so for him to pass away during this whole time, it was a big hit on my husband's mental health and on mine. And so fast forward, January 2021, things are stabilizing. He's getting better. He's able to walk again.
That's good.
The only thing, if you ever meet my husband, you would never have known he had a stroke. But the only thing he has left is a foot drop. So when he walks, it kind of doesn't go up all the way, and then, you know, slams down. But he's able to function almost 100%. What a blessing God has been in that, right? And,
it's amazing.
Like I said, I kept praying for comfort during that time, and nobody really knows what that looks like. But I was like, I was honestly able to say that while I was waiting out the storm, I was in that Airbnb room and just at peace as much as I could be, right, without worrying and stuff like that. But during that time, I'm not thinking about my future. I'm not thinking about anything but the present and trying to stay afloat without having, you know, to get too depressed and all that. But it wasn't until we're, you know, trying to go back. He's going back to work. He got put into, I think, a office position. He's not in the field anymore. And it's just me at the house by myself now, right? I still couldn't find whatever inside me I needed to get back up as far as career-wise goes, right? As far as being a successful person in society, right?
Yeah.
I still couldn't figure it out, and I was so emotional all the time, and I was torn up about everything. It wasn't until the summer that I was like talking to my parents, and I told them, I've got PTSD from this. I've got a lot of internal struggles. I can't imagine thinking about the real world right now when I'm like so broken inside.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until after I talked to them, I was like, okay, you know what? I feel a little bit more stable. I feel like I need to really start working on myself again. And focus on myself and not what we just went through. But nobody teaches you that, right? Nobody teaches you how do you get out of this and back to normal and back to the world. Because it feels like if you do that, then it just feels like you're ignoring it, like it never happened. And I think I had so many instances in my life, so many traumatic experiences that we just moved forward like nothing happened. That I just didn't know how to fix myself, right?
Gotcha.
So that experience kind of, didn't break my entrepreneur spirit. It just wasn't, the spirit wasn't in the forefront of my mind at that point, right?
At that time, understandable.
And so 2021 to July was when I was kind of getting better, right? I was already planning, okay, fall of 2021, I'm going to get back to my markets. I'm going to get back to being a business person and focusing on that and not what we just went through. And praying to God a lot. And, I actually went to by Mr. Austin's office. There's a church over there. And that church, one of my Uber Eats deliveries, I had to go by it, and they had to sign free prayers. So I was like, I'm torn up right now. Like, let me just go. I felt a little weird. I was like, I'm really intimate about praying. I'm really intimate about my religion. It's hard for me to go talk to other people, let alone a stranger, right? But I went to him, cried about my husband, because there was a surgery coming up too to help with something else. And I was just fearful again. He prayed for me, and I just went on like, okay, let me just leave it at that, feel like it's working, and just get back to my business. I had already filled out, I think, August, September, October market dates. I almost had every weekend booked, right? I was going to get back into my business again. And then September of 2021, we found out we were pregnant for the first time. And that was big for me because it's hard for us to get pregnant with PCOS, and so I never imagined. But during all this and during COVID, I was losing weight. I was getting healthy again. And when we found out that we were pregnant and we knew it could be high-risk pregnancy, I tried my best to keep doing my markets, but it's physically a lot of work to be a pop-up vendor. You don't have a brick-and-mortar shop. You have to carry all your stuff with you, all your setup.
And it's all you, huh?
It's all, and my husband.
Oh, your husband, of course.
Well, he got dragged into everything, too. But, just when I was getting my entrepreneurial spirit back, another fear came forward with the pregnancy, and I finished out the year, took it a little bit slower, but then I took some time off because in 2022 is when I was expected to be due, right, in the summer. And so I paused again. I froze my life so that I could make sure that this baby was going to come in healthy and had my full attention, right?
Wow.
And so being a mother during this journey now has been the next challenging milestone. Sorry, all of that, talk about the 2020, but it led into it, right?
Yeah.
So,
no, that's that's the point I was getting ready to make. What has motherhood taught you about yourself that you didn't know before coming to mom?
Well, it taught me that maybe I don't know how to multitask like I thought. Because, multitasking has you using different parts of your brain, right? And has you doing lots of different types of tasks. But for me, especially coming out of all the PTSD and trauma with my husband's health, and now having a little bit of anxiety bringing this baby into this world, it taught me that I had some fears I need to get over. Not get over, but get through.
Yeah.
And kind of ground myself and lay a foundation there, because if your mental and your spiritual health isn't solid and you don't have a foundation, how is it going to be when you get out into the real world and society and everybody's running and moving fast? How are you going to keep up? So I realized, okay, I need to figure out how to slow things down for me, slow things down for my son, and he's 2 now. And so the last 2 years of trying to work and be an entrepreneur, I've been going crazy, y'all.
I'm
Because okay, it was easy when he was a baby, right? Because I'm like, okay, I can take care of him, I can do all this and still do my personal stuff on the side, do my business on the weekends when he's sleeping. I tried it out. It was hard because I'm also trying to feed him the natural way and not do formula, and that was a struggle itself. And then it really made me think, okay, what can you pause? Because this is your business. You don't have to be on all the time. When can you break and just focus on life and then pick back up? And I realized I had to, every day I have to plan it, right? This year alone, I pivoted from doing my jewelry business to doing mobile markup. I can't talk right now. Mobile market pop-ups and coordinating them. So now I'm not just the person attending it. I'm the person helping bring them, make them happen.
Yeah.
And that was a whole new experience. And this was my first year. And this is also the first year my son is walking and talking and all these milestones. And he is doing too much for me to catch up, right? Mentally and emotionally, and like I'm going through the emotions of he's growing, he's not my baby anymore, but I'm so thankful that the first year and a half I was able to pause my business and be there for him. And I'm also thankful I have a husband that is able to allow us to do that. Financially, we're still, paycheck to paycheck, right? We get a little bit saved up for emergencies, but that's not our long-term goal. And because of all of the setbacks we had in the last couple of years, it's been hard to really focus. What does financially our future look like for us, right? So now we're having to readjust our goals and readjust our reality of like what is doable for us right now with a 2-year-old. Because I'm realizing I can't be a full-time career worker person, whatever, having my 2-year-old with the way I want to parent him, right? Because I come in with a lot of baggage from my childhood, and having parents that were absent because they were working or absent because of their own struggles, that has me trying to figure out how do you balance it all. And so bringing that back up of I need to schedule things and have off periods for me and seasons that I am working. So spring and fall are going to be most likely my 2 working seasons, but then like the next 2 weeks for the end of the year, I have to completely cut off from the world and rejuvenate and reconnect with my son and reconnect with my family, but also reconnect with myself. And then that way I'm more prepared to bring on 2025's challenges with doing year 2 of pop-up markets, which is a whole thing in itself. We haven't even got to touch the iceberg of that. But, I really need that time to distance and get my own voices and my own plans aligned so that I have goals for 2025, right? And with my son, he's in the terrible 2 stages right now, and he's constantly screaming and crying and melting down and doesn't listen to no, don't touch. And that has been very hard for me because now it makes me realize I need my son to be in some kind of daycare thing so I can work and just focus on this, because when I'm trying to do just even accepting vendors for a market, and then my son's over here, I'm on the phone, and then he decides all of a sudden, I want to talk, I want to play, Mom. Like, he's all up in my ear and on the phone, and I can't think straight getting
the engineer's degree.
Get this work done, and it's driving me nuts, right? But it does not make me want to quit. It makes me want to figure out how do I balance this more evenly, right?
I love it.
And I have to get out of that mindset of going with what the world is doing and go to what works for me and what other moms are doing, other parents are doing. You're a parent, right?
Oh, no kids.
No, yeah.
No, ain't no kids, man. I'm married.
I thought you had
No, I'm married, but we ain't got no kids.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well, we'll have to check back in with you on having kids, because being a working person and having kids, and that's the thing for me, like, it's such a setback for me having to make these decisions on what I'm doing for myself, career-wise, financial-wise, because then that makes you have to do some sacrificing, right? Do I sacrifice my kids' upbringing for the sake of us having money in the future?
Wow.
You have to decide, like, how much of that are you sacrificing, and then how much are you willing to sacrifice and pay right now so that you can have best of both worlds, right? So I'm not going to be a millionaire in the next 5 years while he's growing up, but he's going to be a millionaire as far as having a parent that is
I
there
love
for
that.
him,
Yeah.
both the parents, but also learning how to be there for him emotionally and his growth cycles, right? Because trying to give him grace when he's throwing these tantrums when I told him you can't be acting like this, right? He understands, but he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts. But you know, it does have me more appreciative of the time I do get working alone because I realize, wow, you can do a lot when you can get things done. And I
Yeah.
think that's why this year, this motherhood has journey with this has been challenging because I don't feel like I'm getting a lot done, especially when your markets and your business is not every day, right? It's weekends and it's in months in advance. We're trying to get ahead of the game by being 2 or 3 months in advance. It's hard when you've always been the person living in the moment and the person living for the results right now, and then having to do this where you're planning ahead of time and getting people to sign up for your markets when they're having to take a leap of faith too, growing with you and knowing, okay, we may not have the foot traffic we need going forward, but we're wanting to stick with her because of her personality and that she is patient with us. Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs right now that are just starting, and sometimes they just need the patience and the the person that's going to be present with them while they're working with them to grow, right?
Yeah.
My 2-year-old it's a lot harder to deal with.
Yeah, I got you.
So I'm ready to work more, but I'm also thankful I don't have to right now.
Yeah, nah, I definitely. Well, I can agree to an extent. I don't have any kids yet, but I know what marriage feels like. I definitely know what that feels. It'll be 12 years for us, January 2025.
Congratulations.
Yeah, 12 years married, 14
We just
together.
celebrated 8 years on Monday, married, 10 years together this
dope.
December. Yeah, so congratulations to you and your wife.
Yes. I guess walk us through the day-to-day duties of what it means to be a mobile market coordinator. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, before I answer that question, as always, I gotta take you on the ride. How we got there. Yeah. And I'll try to wrap that up pretty quick because I know we've been talking. But the mobile market coordinating came to me not because I was trying to become one. I had a person that I met at a market. She was a local vendor. She sells chile gummies on Instagram. And she's very sweet, but she remembered me because when we would do markets at a local, I think it was Paco's Mexican restaurant in Fort Worth, and they were always doing a little holiday one, and so I was like, hey girl, are you gonna be here? Like if you are, let's, sit up next to each other. And so she remembered me just because of that, and she said, hey, do you still coordinate markets? And I said, I've never coordinated a market. Like, she's like, oh, you were always asking me if I was gonna come, and I was like, oh, just because as a friend, as a vendor, like I just wanted you to go with me, but not because I was helping them coordinate. Even though I did have some skills like that in my tool bag, but I had never done it on my own. I never done it in Fort Worth in DFW. So when she said, hey, I have this person who's looking for someone, they own their own restaurant, and they're wanting to do markets. Would you be willing to talk to her and see what you can do? And so I said, sure. So I called them. They're M&O Station Grill in Fort Worth, and they're family owned. And so I was immediately drawn to them because here I have an inspiration that I can connect with. They're family owned, but they're doing it all on their own, right? And so they've had to do it from the ground up since they started, and they've been in Fort Worth, I believe, 30 to 40 years. Don't quote me on that, but I know they've been here a long time.
Yeah.
And so when I called her and I said, I've done markets myself as a vendor, and I've maybe helped 1 or 2, but it wasn't me doing it, right? I was just giving ideas or connecting them with people that I knew. But she said, well, that's okay. Like, we have this day that we're looking for somebody, and we just had our parking lot redone. And I said, okay, if you have nothing to lose and you're willing to just try it out with me, and then I'll do what I can. And so then that had me learning, well, I have a place now. I can contact the vendors I've met along the way, but I've also not been in contact with them for a while because of COVID and because of what I was going through.
Yeah.
I've been MIA a little bit. And so some people remembered me and they connected well. And I was able to get, I want to say 13 to 14 vendors at that first market.
Wow.
And that was November of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
And in December of 2023 was my second one with them.
Thank you.
And so after that, I told them, hey, it's getting cold January and February. We get really icy in Texas sometimes. We never know what's going to happen.
Never know, man.
So I told her, how about March? We'll start back up with our next market in the spring, and we'll go from there. And then she was wanting something monthly. And so spring we got rained out. So I didn't get to really have that market. And that was a big bummer for me because I was able to coordinate 30 vendors for that market.
Woo.
Yes, and we were also having a dog adoption event with the Fort Worth Animal Care Control. And they showed up with their dogs, but we tried our hardest to keep that market going, but it was just pounding rain. I looked at the weather and I said, hey, I don't think we're going to be able to make it through. Let's all pack up. I refunded some people's money and then credited them the other, right? But that was the third one. So each month we ended up having one, but I had to learn, how do you market to people? We're facing a lot of spammy people on Facebook right now, and I noticed that firsthand. The first event I tried to do, somebody was in the comments saying, hey, we're accepting vendors. I'm the only person accepting vendors. Contact me.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
I was like, oh my gosh. I'm sending emails to my people that I just connected with. I'm losing people because they're thinking that now that's spammy, that I'm mentioning the spam. And I'm like, I'm just trying to keep people connected and updated, and I am pretty new to the market world. So as far as Charm Twins being a market, so people are still learning and discovering, who am I? How do we run things, and are we going to be a successful market for them to do?
Yeah.
Those were the three biggest struggles, right? And so this whole year I've been able to get about 10 to 15 vendors. I have return vendors that wanted to try with me, but what I realized in the beginning, so I was like, I'm struggling with finding them. I'm having to do paid ads and stuff like that, and we learned that together. How do you do Facebook ads and marketing, and and how much money do you put in? And like I said, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm learning everything firsthand and on the experience that sometimes it worked out for me, sometimes it didn't. And so it did make me realize, though, even when I did want to quit and things weren't going the right way, that I couldn't give up. Because when I was starting out as a vendor, they had these markets, and even though they weren't busy with foot traffic and I didn't have all these sales, it was so important and a key factor in what I'm doing right now. So I had to be there for people, because I learned that these people were coming to me and seeking me out because I created the space for them.
Wow.
And even though I was like, okay, so not only was it getting people, but it was like, how do I price it? I'm seeing markets in Fort Worth right now going for $85 to $90 per vendor. And knowing me, I can't afford that. And I know there's hundreds of other vendors that can't afford that right now because we're too small, or we're still learning, or we don't have that community just yet. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a new community anyways. Let's keep it fair. I think I did $25 for one table, $40 for a 10 by 10 tent. And that gives them the ability to choose, maybe I should just try this out with just one table and get myself out there. Or if I'm confident about my sales and stuff like that, $40 is nothing. I think that's what kind of helped me, especially being a first-time market coordinator here in Fort Worth. But the other thing I realized too is a lot of my vendors would tell me, "Oh my gosh, you're here? I get to meet you in person." There are market coordinators that never meet their vendors, and I mean, I can understand if you've got a lot of stuff going on, but for me, knowing that I'm here, being the space and the place for new vendors and new small businesses, I have to be here. Like, they need to be able to connect with me and learn to trust me and learn, what we're about, or even give me tips and advice on how to help. And I was so thankful that this year I had vendors doing that. And it was reciprocal. Like, not only was I giving them something, they were giving me something in return, and not even doing it. And so that's what really kept me thinking, okay, like, despite all of life's ups and downs and the things coming at me this year, we made it.
December. we still here.
But definitely, let me not get into that. So I'm about to go into that in a second. But this year was a struggle, because I had a market every month, right? And I ended up with a second location that let me do markets, and it worked out because they wanted a weekday. And I found out there were a lot of vendors and small businesses looking for a weekday location. So even though these markets, sometimes they were slow, sometimes they were great, the struggle of marketing it and getting people to come was really hard this year. It really made me want to quit a couple of times. But what got me not to quit was the connections I was getting with these vendors. They're calling me up, hey, do you have a place I can sell this week? I just need to find, something to set up and at least try. And so I was like, yeah, we have this and this going on. But when I got to September, August I finished my summer series with M&O Station Grill. We had night markets because the heat was too hot for the summer.
Right.
My cousin passed away, my biological cousin. So that was hard because not only am I dealing with this new, thing in my work life, and I'm dealing with my son being 2 and still kind of grieving everything from 2020 and all that stuff. Like, I'm still going through a grieving process. This one was the one that kind of made this fall a little bit difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because, we can do all kinds of great things in our life, but then the decisions that we make towards the, I want to say towards the end, just because the end was so close. My cousin was very young, so he didn't have more years to kind of make up from it. But the last couple of years in his life, we weren't as close. But that made me realize, people can be so connected to you with you 1 minute, and then y'all part ways and go different lifestyles and stuff like that, and then never see them again. But that doesn't erase what they were to you before, or what they were to society and the world before.
Makes sense.
And so I struggled because it's like I miss my cousin so much, but the last couple months, year, I wasn't able to connect with him on that level like I used to be, because we were kind of going through different lifestyles. And so the same with kind of paralleling that to my business is like I fell out of touch with people for so long that didn't take away what I brought to the table or what I did for myself and in my life, and I had to kind of remember that. And so I was, struggling with like, how do I slow down right now without losing momentum, without losing everything I built? I'm so tired, y'all. I'm so tired as a mom and as a wife and as a entrepreneur. A lot, because just all the hats that become, as a small business, but also as a market coordinator, all these small hats, people don't realize what you're doing. I went to ChatGPT, y'all, and I put, what kind of employees do I need to be a market coordinator doing this and this and that? I think it gave me about 12 to 20 employees is what I would need to do what I'm doing.
Wow.
And I'm doing this on my own with my husband. We're roping him into that, and my siblings asking him, how does this flyer look? I'm doing that on my own, and I have to give myself a little bit more grace.
Yeah.
And say, okay, you're dealing with some real life grief, you're dealing with this and that. Take your break, but don't forget to get back up, and don't forget to connect where you can and when you can. And so, being that mobile marketer, I was like I said, I have imposter syndrome. This is the first year I'm doing it. I'm not maybe doing as well as I think I should be doing, but then I'm doing pretty good. Just starting. Yeah. I have to see that, right?
That goes back to you getting a DBA. Just
yes.
do it.
And I feel like, I should be so much further along the way, 6 years later. But I'm just beginning, and I have to remind myself, it's still a lot. That's big, right? That's big for a little foster care kid that got adopted who,
that's huge. That's huge.
But, that's me, I think putting myself down, and I haven't been around enough connections to help mirror, right? And so that's one thing I realized with connecting with your community is the best place to get that personal mirror to show you who you are, who you've been becoming all along. Yeah. Especially in a short amount of time. You don't get that from the fast-paced world, and you're seeing people once or twice, and never again. And our world is shifted from doing stuff in personal to doing virtual stuff, and we're on social media and we're on TikTok, and we're seeing people live their lives, but we're not living their lives with them, right? And we're not connecting with people as much anymore. These mobile these pop-up markets, right? That's another reason why I want to keep pursuing it, is because for the day, we create this space for people to come and talk to other people, to share in joy of spending, getting a gift for somebody. I had 2 vendors this year alone that connected with us on such a personal level. Like, I cried with them because one had open heart surgery, like my husband. Wow. And when he found our market, he was just in the neighborhood and began coming every market, because it was something for him to do, to get out of the house, to connect with people. And when he connected with me that very first time, he said, how do I do this? How to become a person who can sell these things? I said, what do you do? He said, well, I just draw and paint. And he's not Picasso, but he's got a great skill and great eye. And he's somebody who started out later on in life, and he's learning how to do something that he loves, that is calming and peaceful to him, and make it into something that connects with other people. And so, the stuff that he painted, like for Father's Day, he did some emotional pieces where it had like a child with their dad, and then you flip it over and it's in the lake, the reflection, it's an older man with an older man. Like, so it's that son and father figure living like now he's old now and the son is a dad now. You know, something like that. He does an emotional twist to things, and so that is what got people to buy from him. But he would never have gotten that connection unless he spoke up first and foremost, like, how do I do this? But second, like, he showed up anytime we had something. He's like, oh yeah, I want to be there. And you know, like, for me, the markets weren't, I gotta make money, right? I gotta make a living, but they weren't always about money. So for somebody like that who doesn't have this background of already being an entrepreneur, he just needs something to connect with people and see if this is for him. There are times I didn't charge him because he's not making enough to make his split fee back. He sold maybe 3 pieces. And like I said, he's got a good artistic eye, but of course he's not like some of the people that are at the Kimball Art Museum or you know. Yeah. It's not going to make him $100 just off of one thing. So I have to look at that. So like, okay, he needs this community. And the only reason why he has this community for these markets is because we keep showing up. And I have to show myself, okay, you got to keep showing up no matter how you feel, because this is helping somebody.
Me and my engineer just had this conversation yesterday. Got to keep showing up.
You keep showing up because you never know. And, you know, I've noticed that this year alone, and everybody that I've connected with, the different pathways that I've been connected with. I say that pathways because, like, I mean, even working for Mr. Austin, I'm seeing there's some struggles in businesses that have been around, entities that have been around for so long. I think this year has just been kind of a little funky, right? But then that shows you, okay, if my community is not responding, then how do I show up for my community? And how do I start building those connections one by one again? Because that's literally how it happens. You make these connections, and one by one they start spreading like wildfire. You can't do that on social media like you used to, because one, their algorithm is not going to pull you to their page, and two, you know, they need something quick. And sometimes, like me, I ain't going to be talking your ear off for maybe 2 hours, and we're going to go deep, and we're going to talk about certain things that are probably bothering you. You won't get that from me online because I can't sit there and text. I don't have the time to sit there and have that meaningful conversation with people, especially with the 2-year-old. So these community spaces that I'm creating, like, it just encourages me to keep on going, because even though I'm getting something out of it, I mean, financially, emotionally, I'm helping create the new entrepreneurs coming into Texas, you know, building, or growing in Texas, right? With the museum, even the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum, I'm inspired to just have the connections there, because these kids that show up and learn about, what does he say, a fourth of the cowboys were Hispanic, African American, and Native American. And I mean, I knew there was Hispanic ones. I knew, you know, but I don't get to see the context. I don't get to see the names. As far as history goes, in my history books, we didn't stay, you know, a month on that chapter and learning all these things. But the museum has that outlet to teach them. But now, what do you do after you teach somebody about their history and about their culture? How you need to engage them. And so, same with these communities that I'm showing up with. I'm showing up and giving a space for these people to be able to explore what they're doing in the present day right now is going to be history in a couple of years, right? Same with I bring up the cultural, the Heritage Museum, because the kids that are learning about what's going on with the cowboys and stuff like that, you're a cowboy. We're here in Texas, and yes, we don't have our horses and stuff like that, but if you wanted to, you can go over there and start learning and become about that lifestyle, right? But these cowboys and Westerners that came over here and developed Texas, I mean, I parallel that to the students and the kids that are growing up here. They're going to end up being somebody that's going to develop this area in some shape or form. And it could be something very minuscule, but it could be something very big. And it isn't until you get plugged into these communities that you can really start having that foundation to start becoming a part of something bigger and getting connected and having a resource that'll help you later on in the future.
Gotcha.
But I don't know, like I said, like, we don't realize how big of a thing we're doing until later on down the road, and that's why you can't give up.
Yeah.
You're reaching somebody. You're reaching somebody in any kind of way, in different ways, you know. Yeah. Like I said, like, this journey, being a business entrepreneur, like, it's about, of course, the finances, but I mean, behind everything, there's emotion, and there's, you know, a drive, and there's something that happened to you that made you want to keep going, right? Or make you go this route, because, you know, a lot of times being an entrepreneur means you're free to your own schedule, and you're free to I guess who you do business with and stuff. But if you go and work for somebody, you're never going to be able to develop those skills to really take control of what you're doing.
Gotcha.
And so that could be a blessing in itself too, because then you don't have to worry about nothing, right? You don't have to wear all these hats and not get paid for it.
How can the people, man, I guess, follow you on social media, like connect with you?
You can connect with me on Charm Twins on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I may not be active for a couple months because I'm going to be on a break, but connect with me there. Message me if you're interested in being a vendor or just even learning about being an entrepreneur. I'm always looking for people that are wanting to learn more. I mean, even to shadow me, I'll talk about whatever. And I'm not going to gatekeep nothing because this world is too big to gatekeep. And the city is too big. Like, it's so big. There's so many places you can go and connect with people and just learn more. So Charm Twins, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Gotcha.
Talk so much. I love it.
It's all good. Well, today was great, man. Definitely learned a lot more about you outside of the entrepreneur space, working with Jim and us going to meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, today was great, man. This is how we close out 2024, man. This is Ordinary Conversations with Extraordinary People with your host with the most, Willie Beeman. Be ready to be with us next year, man, in 2025, man, as we continue this journey. Y'all come follow us. Y'all be a part of our community. Go follow our Facebook page, Forest Hill Public Library. And we will see you guys in 2025. Peace.
Sorry, you didn't say it. Ask all your questions.
No, no, into your story, man. I'll try to have to